Hello, friends, and thank you for tuning into this mini-series of videos that focuses on Luminaire level lighting controls and covers highlights from 2021 market research activities. My name is John Wilson. I'm the founding director of Fernhill Shopworks, a market research firm specializing in the lighting market and utility programs, and I'm excited to play host and narrator for this little series. In this mini-series, we're going to cover findings from market research specific to what's driving specification of lighting controls. We're going to go on to talk about common areas of confusion that were identified in the process of conducting interviews and market research. And in the final segment, we'll reach a crescendo of sorts when we talk about wireless trends and what they mean for the controls market. It's exciting stuff, I know. But before we get there, I'd like to share that this work was sponsored by the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, or NEEA. Now, many of you are already familiar with NEEA. Others likely familiar with Better Bricks, which is like their industry-facing brand. If you're not, I really encourage you to check them out. And last, now is a great time to thank not only NEEA, but all the participants and folks who generously provided time and energy to help make this a success. So somewhere out there are a bunch of people who helped, and I want to say thank you. All right, now, first things first, what are we even talking about when we say Luminaire level lighting controls? Well, the truth of the matter is I have been doing this for a really long time. And after talking to dozens of people just specifically about this project, I couldn't help but think about Luminaire level lighting controls as one of those sort of epic stories that gets passed down through the ages. One that we're all generally familiar with, but based on your background or your age or your business model, or maybe all of those things, you have a slightly different understanding of, what LLLC is to you. Now, one of the cool things or funny things maybe about this is that it's not just that people reliably have different definitions of LLLC, it's that they tend to vary in very predictable ways, which is also kind of fun, especially because people tend to be fluid too. They can kind of switch between, what they think Luminaire level lighting control means. So let's talk about what it means to us, at least for the sake of this mini series, okay? For our conversation throughout this little video series, and just to keep us sure-footed, I'm going to be using the following definition, which in my opinion reflects the majority consensus of what makes Luminaire level lighting controls Luminaire level lighting controls. At least most of the time, we'll say. So number one, the most obvious characteristic is that every Luminaire has an integrated motion and ambient light sensor, right? For presence detection and daylight and all that good stuff, okay? The next one is that every Luminaire is individually addressable at the fixture level, okay? And later on in the next section, part 2 of the mini-series, we're gonna dive into more of what that means. And then number 3, Luminaire level lighting controls are networked. And whether you agree with that statement or scoffed at it, I strongly encourage you to tune in to the rest of the mini-series because we're gonna keep picking this apart and talking more and more about what does networked mean. Okay. In addition to those first 3 things, Luminaire level lighting controls might be wired or not, wireless, and they need to be capable of these other features I've got identified over here on the side. In my opinion, these other things aren't nearly as important as these first 3 features that I talked about, but they are still pretty critical to the overall definition. And before we move off our working definition, I want to highlight that reasonable minds can differ along 2 very predictable fault lines with regards to what is LLLC. And these 2 fault lines are just how integrated and exactly how networked. Now, I'm not going to answer these just right now, but I promise we are going to come back to these. So that's just a tease for why you should stick around for the rest of the series. And as I'm building this tension and teeing up the series, I think it also behooves us to talk about the value proposition of Luminaire level lighting controls, or to be fair, what some participants who participated might call the ostensible value proposition of Luminaire level lighting controls. True believers of LLLC will tell you that when you integrate both a load controller and that dual sensor into every single fixture, well, good things just start to happen for everyone. Not only does everyone win, but LLLC is actually at the heart of this broader market transformation, which includes IoT and connected buildings and all that good stuff. And to be clear, it's not just the ivory tower types who are drinking the LLLC Kool-Aid and saying this stuff. It's also lighting controls manufacturers. And you can find similar examples of this sort of language throughout their product literature. And we're not talking about like, a half dozen systems. We're talking about 24+ systems that are, you'll find them not just online, but these are systems that have qualified on the Design Lights qualified products list for NLC. The interesting fact is there's this broad consensus that LLLC has the potential to deliver on all these fronts. And simultaneously, there's broad consensus that LLLC only makes up a fraction of the market in terms of sales. Now, I can't tell you, definitively how big that piece of the sales is, but I can tell you it's not the lion's share. So what gives? Well, to find out, tune into part 2 of this mini-series and the rest of this mini-series, where we're going to be diving into this, including findings from surveys and interviews we conducted with influential lighting designers and control specifiers who provided a wealth of information to help us answer exactly this question. All right, friends, that's it for part 1 of the mini-series. And I realize that was more like a preamble or a short preface, but if it piqued your interest, then I really feel confident saying you're going to enjoy the rest of the series. Once again, I'm John Wilson. And if you've got questions, please reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can contact me at the contact info listed here. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to answer your questions. And I really do hope you join us for the rest of the series. Bye now.